I expect our new head coach, Ben Johnson, to shake things up this year, and the final 53-man roster could surprise a lot of people. Yes, most of the roster is pretty set in stone, but the final 7 or 8 spots could get pretty crazy. I think no matter what happens over the next 24 hours, the final roster will not be our final roster. Remember that Ryan Poles always makes 3 to 5 moves after setting the 53. But let's go ahead and show my crazy projection for the 53-man roster. This is just for fun, guys. The real roster will be out tomorrow. And then I want to talk about the final spots that are up for grabs. What are the decisions that the Bears are still making, and who else could make this team? On offense, I have us keeping 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 6 receivers, 3 tight ends, and 10 total offensive linemen. But on the defensive side of the ball, I had us keeping 10 total defensive linemen as well, 5 D tackles, and 5 defensive ends. I'll talk more about the final spots on the D line in just a minute. But another surprise here was I had us only keeping 4 linebackers and then 6 cornerbacks and 4 safeties. But my final roster spot for me on my 53 here honestly came down to Case Keenum versus Amen Ogbongbemiga. And any guys you see with an asterisk on the screen, those are guys who are still in roster battles. I'll talk about those in a second. I had us keeping Case Keenum over another linebacker. Since I kept Jahdae Walker, Daniel Hardy, Josh Blackwell, and Elijah Hicks on the roster, I thought maybe, just maybe, we didn't need 5 linebackers, but we'll probably keep 5. We'll see. I do not expect to get all 53 spots right on this. I think Ben Johnson is going to shake things up, and I also expect a lot of movement to still come after we narrow it down to the 53. There's guys potentially going to be going to the injured reserve or PUP to start the season. That could open up a couple additional spots, and then there could be some surprise cuts as well. I think there will be some surprises, but I wanted to talk about the final spots on the 53, the guys battling for those spots. The Bears still have some key decisions to make at the bottom of the roster. They're still deciding on wide receiver 6, how many running backs to keep, what backups to keep on both sides of the ball in the trenches, and of course, what core special teamers are staying. Rookie cornerback Zay Frazier will not be making the roster. He's been placed on the reserve non football injury list, so he will be sticking around. Good news for his future in the NFL, but a bad start to his career as his rookie season is pretty much over for now. I really wanted Ian Wheeler to make this roster, but unfortunately he got cut and will not be sticking around. The Bears really like Travis Homer's special teams ability, and I think that could open up some flexibility in other places. And then another question that's getting overlooked here is, does anyone else go to the injured reserve or start the season on the PUP? That's going to open up additional spots. At wide receiver, I have Jahdae Walker making this team. I would keep him over Tyler Scott, JP Richardson, and Miles Boykin, everyone else behind him. He's a young, athletic playmaker who also contributes on special teams. Do not let Jahdae Walker go. I know most of the times fans overrate our players a little bit, and usually you can bring guys that you cut back on the practice squad. The one guy that I doubt we'd be able to keep is Jahdae Walker. Teams are lacking playmakers on offense, especially at wide receiver, and someone would give this guy a shot. Honestly, I think someone most likely will pick up Tyler Scott as well. The problem here is our wide receiver room is the best I ever remember it looking as far as talent and depth are concerned. We are loaded at the wide receiver position. But then the final running back spot. But do we keep 3 or 4? Honestly, I could see us keeping just 3 running backs. I think DeAndre Swift is a lock. I think Kyle Monungai is also a lock to make this roster. And I think Roshan Johnson is pretty much a lock as well. You can't undervalue Travis Homer's special teams ability. It really comes down to whether or not we can stash Ian Wheeler on the practice squad. He's another guy that someone could take a chance on just for his 4.3 speed alone. It's possible here, though, we could go with 4 running backs and only keep 2 QBs on the roster. Is Case Keenum a lock? I have him on my 53, but maybe, just maybe, the Bears decide to go another direction. As far as the offensive line goes, I think we're keeping all five tackles. I don't really think that's a question. And really, the last spot comes down to Luke Newman and Ryan Bates versus everyone else. That's Doug Kramer, Ricky Stromberg, Bill Murray, and Jordan McFadden all fighting for roster spots. And then with both Newman and Bates being able to play center as well as guard, does that mean the end for Doug Kramer and Ricky Stromberg in Chicago? And then there are also reports that right now we're trying to trade guard Jordan McFadden. He did look pretty good in the preseason, and they might want to keep him around, but he'll probably end up getting cut anyway. It's possible someone could give us a late round pick for him, though. A possibility here as well, though. Remember, the 53-man rosters are not final tomorrow, and we're still going to make a couple moves. So it's very possible that we keep an extra player at a different position. Maybe you keep someone like Jordan McFadden and give you another week or two to trade him. That's something to keep an eye on as well. On defense, Tano Passanio versus Dominique Robinson is a big one. I have Dom Rob making the team, but I wouldn't be shocked if they kept Passanio. They could also cut Daniel Hardy, but his special teams ability really factors into a lot. And at defensive tackle, it's a big one here. Does Zach Pickens make the roster? And is Andrew Billings safe? How much do they like Chris Williams? Really, it comes down to two spots here between three guys. You have Andrew Billings, Chris Williams, and Zach Pickens. I know a lot of people have Pickens getting cut here, but I still see potential in this dude. Is it Zach Pickens versus Andrew Billings, or do you keep them and maybe try to get Chris Williams back on the practice squad again? Honestly, I'm glad I'm not the one making this decision. I would probably still cut Amen Ogbongbemiga or Travis Homer or someone else and try to keep Big Bill and Zach Pickens. Chris Williams has looked pretty solid, but the decision at D tackle is going to be tough. At linebacker, we have four players who are locks to make this roster. Really, the only question here is, do we keep a fifth linebacker? We still have Carl Jones and Amen Ogbongbemiga, but it's Amen who's the guy who's been a core special teams player his entire career. This decision is really for Richard Hightower, and that's why it's hard to predict. Who are his core special teams guys this year? Last year, those guys were Travis Homer, Daniel Hardy, Amen Ogbongbemiga, Josh Blackwell, and Elijah Hicks. But there's a couple of questions here. With Jahdae Walker making the roster, can he replace one of those four? And what are Richard Hightower's thoughts on the other guys' special teams ability? And is Josh Blackwell healthy? I don't know the answer to that one. But the last decision is really the final cornerback spot. It's really Nick McLeod's spot right now. But there are some really tough roster decisions being made right now. Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles have a few tough decisions to make, and how they choose the special teams guys will really shape the bottom of this roster. And that's what makes the final spots so hard to pick. But remember, a lot of these guys will be cut over the next 24 hours, and they could potentially be back on the practice squad in a couple of days. Ryan Poles also will be keeping his eye out for players that get cut across the NFL. What if there are some players that Ben Johnson or Dennis Allen really are interested in or familiar with that get released? There will probably be a lot of roster movement over the next 72 hours. I'll be here to break it all down for you guys. Stay tuned. Please remember to hit that like button for me. And until next time, bear down.